Hello, we are the Romani Diamonds, and today we'll be explaining how the Romani people have traveled around the world and how we exist today. So we started off in India. From what we know, it was around the Rajasthan areas, and they traveled all the way to Europe. And there was different groups that traveled within different areas. So there's a few Roma families that traveled up to like Kazakhstan into Russia, and a lot of them stayed in Russia. There was other groups that traveled through Iran, Turkey, then into Romania, and then some of them also traveled all the way to Greece, and from Greece went to different parts of Europe. My family originally they traveled to Greece, then they went over to Hungary, Slovakia, and at the end Poland. And a lot of Roma people have actually stayed within the, let's just say, the middle parts of Europe. And our language is pretty much made up of every single language around the world because of the way that they were traveling to different countries. So for example, the ones that travel to Russia, they will have a lot of Russian words in it, but they would have Romani accents within the Russian words. A lot of words are also from Greece, and there's a lot of words originally from where we came from, which is Punjabi or Hindi, which are also included within the language. So for example, the way we count, Yek, Dui, Trin, Shtar, Panch is from the Indian regions. And for example, Shof, Efta, Ochto, Enya, Idesh is from the Greek regions. So as you can see, our language is mixed up of different languages. Music and dance was very, very important to a Roma person, as that was passed on from generation to generation, and from the youngest of ages, that was the only thing that they did to actually bring income to the family. So that's why it was very important. And for example, when they were traveling, they would imitate the nature and use that within their music. So for example, a violinist would imitate the birds and the sounds of the birds. A dancer would imitate the butterflies. For example, they used very colorful dresses that imitated the butterfly as they moved, and also the birds that they would see as well. Another important thing that they used to do was that they would imitate people around them. So for example, a lot of the Roma people, they traveled into Russia, and the Russians had a very, very strong dancing skills within the tap dancing, and they used that to kind of incorporate inside their dances as well. Hungary, they had a lot of kind of like slapping the knees kind of movements, which was very, very fast, and it also incorporated that within the dance, mixed with everything else that they've learned throughout the time that they was traveling. As the Roma traveled through the world, a lot of them did stop in Spain, and they was not allowed to speak the language, and the only way they was able to communicate with other people about the culture and show their strong culture roots was through dance. And I don't know if you lot have realized, but flamenco is a very kind of gestured dance, and they expressed all their feelings and emotions through that dance. And also the dresses and the skirts also imitated the nature that they would see, imitating like the horses, the way the horses were riding, they would imitate that within their dance moves.
One very important thing about the Roma culture is that they are very family orientated, so they have really close bonds between their families. For example, mother and a daughter, if the daughter gets married, the bonds are very close, kept very close together, and they have a lot of respect for the elders in their communities. This is very important for the Roma culture, to show respect, a lot of respect for the elders. That was one of the main points in the Gypsy culture, to have respect for the elders. And the roles within the families were that men worked and collected food, while women looked after the children and elderly relatives.
The Roma community have very strict and complex guidelines when it comes to cleanliness, purity, respect, honor, and justice. For example, when it comes to respect, and the younger generation, they have to respect the older people, and that could be also seen through the way that they dress. So for example, females, they have to dress accordingly to our culture's rules and regulations, which is to cover up as much as possible. So you will see a lot of Roma females wearing longer skirts and also trying to cover up the arms. And that also includes the way that the men dress. The men usually have shirts on and they have like trousers on with really, really extravagant shoes, like you might see. Another thing that's very important to a Roma person is the cleanliness. If you're not clean, it shows that a sign of disrespect. So that's why it's also very important. The Roma people used to travel in beautiful handmade wooden caravans where they would travel around the world, and they would usually stop either in forests or near beautiful water sites and the mountains. Hence why our flag has green, blue and a red wheel. The wheel represents the caravan, the green represents the land that they would travel on, and the blue represents the skies and the waters that they would see. Within the Roma community, we have a lot of famous influencers. For example, Elvis Presley, Michael Caine, Mother Teresa, and within Poland, Berlin, Germany, and Sweden, famous for his gypsy jazz music, was Django Reinhardt, who used to sell flowers within his caravan. And someone actually burnt his caravan, and he actually made up a different style of gypsy jazz because his tendons in his fingers actually stopped working, so he was only able to move 2 fingers, and he made a different style of gypsy jazz that we play today. The Roma community have also gone through a lot of prejudice and racism during their time that they were traveling. For example, they went through the Holocaust, and thousands of Roma people have been gassed and killed during that time. Also, many years ago, the famous Henry VIII king has also made a ban on people speaking the Roma language. So if you were heard speaking Romanese, you would be beheaded. In places not long ago, even like Slovakia and Czech, when they would hear a Roma person speak, they also banned it. So a lot of people in Slovakia and in Czech countries don't really speak the language, and hence a lot of people did lose their culture. Like in England during the Henry VIII time, we know that a lot of Roma people from England lost their language and therefore lost the culture that they kind of grew up in.